Hello, this is Eric Miscoll with EMSNOW here at the show floor at Apex 2020. Ron Keith is with us here today with Supply Chain Resource Group, formerly Riverwood Solutions. Wanted to talk some about regionalization. You've been sharing your opinion on a lot of matters, but I think this is a topical one, right? So regionalization, as I think of it, is kind of in-region, for-region manufacturing. Is that how you use the term?
That's a good way of looking at it.
Okay. So, and that's always seems to be an ever-changing kind of scenario within EMS industry. How is that currently? How do you see that evolving?
I was a little surprised the other morning. I went to some of the award shows, and the number of U.S.-based EMS companies here that do less than $100 million. And in talking to them, I said, that's always been a really tough place to be. And they said, yeah, it's always been a really tough place to be, except for the last couple of years. With the tariffs and everything, there's just more and more people thinking about, why do I build half a world away? And there's always going to be a huge need for China. China is the world's factory. More than 55% of the world's electronics are going to be built there. And that's going to change around the margins. It's not going to be this wholesale change. But there have been a number of EMS companies that have always espoused this regionalization. I think part of it is because they have a lot of legacy factories that they bought from OEMs and stuff. But not only the tariffs, but now tariffs and the coronavirus, people are saying, I'm very concentrated in one area. And why should a virus in China impact my shipments into Germany and into France and England and stuff like that? So you're seeing a little more pickup in this regionalization and a little bit more of a move away from these mega factories that are all about, look, if I've got 100,000 people in one location, I'm really going to have the lowest total cost. You're going to have the lowest total cost on an X works basis, but on a landed to the customer basis, maybe not. It just depends. So,
how is it at the top tier, though? I mean, what you're talking about the smaller ones, but as you get into the bigger ones, they tend to have, the tier ones have always had kind of a global network and they can shift between. Do you see that changing as well in the process?
So I think there have been a couple of different approaches. I think there's been kind of a Flextronics, J-Bill approach, maybe even some of the guys like Plexus and Creation, where a region is not just a continent. Maybe there's a few more options. And then there's been kind of the big Taiwan approach, which is the Wistrons and the Pegatrons and the Foxcons, which is really big centralized operations. And even though Foxconn now has a facility in Wisconsin and they've got a big operation in Mexico, it's kind of super regionalization as opposed to at a little more finite level. And so I think guys like Jabil and Flextronics are doing reasonably well in some of their more local sites. You talk about North America as a region. North America's a pretty damn big place, right? Europe too. Everybody talks about the European market, but there's a lot of different countries, quite a bit of logistics infrastructure and stuff. So not only just kind of regionalization at the continental level, but even within country groups, within geographic areas within a big country like the U.S.
Does that matter to OEMs, to the customers, ultimately?
The customers generally don't care. I think there are some customers that become a little bit sensitive to certain places of manufacture that our administration has made the boogeyman, whether that be Mexico, whether that be China, whoever. The customers want a really high quality product, and they want it at the right price. Not necessarily always at the lowest price. There's some things you don't really shop on a price basis, and they want it when they want it. And there's some arguments around regionalization for that. A lot of products we see coming from China, are still shipped on a boat, and you're talking about maybe 32 days, 35 days. Some of these products, when you're doing a launch of a new consumer product, they actually depreciate in value while they're on the water. You launch a new earbud or something, and it's $199, and it's $199 for 2 weeks, and then you suck up that demand, and then you instantly drop it to $179. Well, if you've got a bunch of stuff on the water that was worth $199, when it left, Suzhou, and now it's worth $179 when it lands in Long Beach. That's something that can be considered too.
And then there's the issue of the component supply base being primarily Asia, right? So that has to impact those decisions as well. Mexico, you figure over 90% of what's being assembled on boards is imported from China through the ports and all that. Is that a confounding variable in all this, or is that just a reality that has to be handled.
So, in terms of making a decision around regionalization, if you're looking at that from a market service perspective, that's not as important. If you're looking at regionalization from I want to mitigate my concentration risk, then you need to understand not just where am I going to do final assembly and test, but where do those components come from. And so if you're doing final assembly and test in Romania and in Mexico and in Vietnam, and it's all based on one set of chips from an NXP plant that gets packaged at Amcor in Shanghai, have you really taken much risk out of that? Now, there are other ways to take risk out of it. You can bring on some inventories and things like that, but simply regionalizing for reduction of risk at the final assembly level is probably insufficient to get what you're trying to get in terms of real continuity of supply.
It's interesting, when I used to be on the consulting side of the business and we talked to people about the low cost, we said, listen, we know where the lowest cost is. It's sub-Saharan Africa. You don't want to be there. And here are the reasons why, right? So it's not always, so I think that trend is chasing the lowest cost. That we've stopped those antics, haven't we?
Well, I think to some extent. I mean, there are products, we have a customer right now, sells in a little electronic device, it's in a little clamshell, and they sell it for $1. That really is a price-sensitive market. If you take, an extra, 15 cents out of a set of earbuds, out of a smartwatch, does it really matter, right? And so sometimes saving that last nickel, that last penny, that last dime can be really expensive in the long run. So I don't think it matters all that much for all of the products. Having said that, the people that are responsible for sourcing these products, they get paid to drive that price down, regardless of how important that actually is to the larger picture. So I think the incentives need to be changed if we're really going to look at risk considerations, service considerations beyond just the X Works price.
Great to talk to you. This is interesting, and always, and it's ever changing, isn't it? This isn't a static thing. So,
and I think we're going to see more change in the next couple of years than we've seen in the last 5, between tariffs, between coronavirus, between kind of this. There is this nationalism arising around the world in a lot of different countries, and there's this protectionism. The world in the last 4 years has gone from globalization is great to nationalism, and globalization maybe is bad, and it's going to be interesting to see where this thing goes.
Good. I appreciate your time today, Ron. Thank you, sir.